Welcome to this Friday, July 14th edition of Wasatch Weekends. I'm your host, Ben Roof. On today's show, we'll be talking to Katy Wang from Park City Film about tonight's film, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, and some of their upcoming summer programming. Then Kimberly Perot has got some tips and tricks for us for the job seeker and how to be successful in our job interviews. But first, a local announcement. The McPolin Barn and Farmhouse is hosting tours this Saturday, July 15th from 4 to 5:30 p.m. And it's a fantastic opportunity to take a tour led by volunteer docents to learn a lot about homesteading, farming, and open space in the history of Park City and Summit County. But let's take a quick look at the local weather in case we're going out to check out that tour.
This resort report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Welcome back to Wasatch Weekends. We are joined now by Katy Wang of Park City Film. Welcome to the show, Katy.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. So you guys have Marcel the Shell with Shoes On coming up, but a lot more going on too in the next couple of weeks. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you got going on?
So Marcel the Shell with Shoes On was one of my favorite films that we showed in the fall when it premiered, and it's one that people keep asking about. And so it's really fun to be able to bring it back because it appeals to film lovers of all ages. My 10-year-old loves it. I've got 70-year-old patrons who are asking about it. Like, oh, are you going to bring it back? I can't wait to show my friends and family this film because it's just so clever. It was nominated for Best Animated Film for the Academy Awards this year. And basically the idea is it started with a little short film, as many feature-length films do, this kernel of an idea about Marcel the Shell with shoes on. He's got some googly eyes, and he is discovered by a documentary filmmaker in his Airbnb. He's in a drawer. He has lost his family. He doesn't know where everyone is. And so the filmmaker decides to make a documentary about him and put it online so that he can help reunite him with his lost family. So of course brings him fame and a little bit of danger, as sometimes these YouTube videos do, of people, a little bit more interested in him than perhaps they should be. But it's just this great story about family, about, finding connections in small places, and just so beautifully done. It's great to be able to bring it back, as I said, so that more community members can enjoy it. So we're partnering with Park City Library and Basin Recreation. So we're showing it outside. So it'll be not in the Jim Santee Auditorium, but just outside in the library patio at 8:45 p.m. So just as the sun's going down, we've got free popcorn. You can get your blankets and low back chairs and come out and just enjoy this fabulous film that will definitely have you talking long after the film ends.
It really looks like it's going to be a spectacular show. And I was just watching the trailer a little bit earlier, and it looks like it's both going to be a fun, adorable, but also pretty emotionally impactful film. And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I say it's not just for children, right? I mean, people think animation, they're like, in this country anyway, they're like, oh, it's for kids. But when you look around the world, I mean, particularly, I love French cinema, but French animated films, other countries, Japanese anime, right? It's for, they're deep, complex stories that you can just tell in these interesting ways when you're not kind of stuck in the box of live action, right? But how can you be creative? And it does intermix live action with animation and just that kind of creativity where your imagination can go wild in just these beautifully interesting ways.
Well, 'cause it's a stop motion film, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So in that, what exactly is stop motion compared to, say, animation or live action? How is that a different way to produce a film?
So for stop motion, if you're familiar with animation, you're creating each individual frame of the picture, right? I mean, if you think about film, how that would work, you'd have to literally back in the day, they would hand animate each individual frame and then bring them to like a flip book, right? And then bring it together. Stop animation is a little bit more like the flip book in that you are creating physically each piece, right? Each scene, and then you slightly move the shell or whatever it is in the scene, and then you take a picture, and then you slightly move it and you take a picture. And so then you link it all together. So if it's on the computer, it's a little bit different than how they do it with like Mr. Bell, right? Where it was like claymation, where you literally have to like move the arm and all of that. So it's a little bit faster with computers nowadays. But that's essentially what it is that it's someone's just creating it, but each individual piece, I mean, it's so meticulous. It takes so much time to really think about, okay, how does this work? As opposed to having human actors, right, in live action where they're moving, but it's all in sequence. And so you're just taking those pictures kind of in continuum, as it were. So it's super fascinating how it all comes together, but also a different level of creativity that's required. And certainly a lot of attention to detail in terms of like, how is it going to look? What's the setup? How do you make it look believable, right? In terms of how it moves, and then continuity. If you think about, you can't have some weird disruption where suddenly the shell is on the left side of the screen and then it's on the right. And you're like, well, what happened in the middle? Where's the middle part? So really just thinking about kind of how the craft comes together. And that's, many reasons why I love animation is because there's so much that goes into it. Just that thought and just so many people, right? You look at the credits and it's, casts of thousands that kind of brought it all to fruition, which is pretty cool.
Well, and speaking of animation, you guys have a couple more animated films coming up too, right?
Animated and live action. So we are back. We're kind of on the road this summer, as I like to say. We did the Twilight Drive-In for the last few years, which was fantastic, but it kind of sparked this idea of like, well, let's go out more outside, be in plein air, as they say, but go around Summit County, not just be fixed to one spot. As much as we love the UOP, we want to get to other parts of Summit County. So next week, we're actually on the 20th, which is a Thursday. We'll be out in Colville, the Ledges Event Center. So on the beautiful sloped lawn back there behind the Ledges Event Center. It's kind of perfectly landscaped for watching. And we're going to show Field of Dreams. So perhaps means no introduction, but the Kevin Costner baseball classic. So we'll be showing that at 7:00. We're using an LED screen for that one. So it'll be before the sun goes down. You can bring your friends and family, bring a picnic, have dinner, and watch that great film about building the field, the baseball field out there in the Iowa cornfield for the shoeless Joe Jackson and his team. And then on July 25th, we're actually back in the Jim Santee Auditorium. So we're going inside. And we're showing a Japanese anime film, speaking of animation. And this one is at 7:00 and it's called Goodbye, Don Glees. And we are just trying to bring, this as part of our international summer film series. We're trying to bring films from all over the world into our community, again, to spark the imagination of our young cinema lovers, to, appeal to our older film lovers who like films from around the world. It will be shown, it'll be dubbed in English, so that, again, we can have our younger audience members be able to take part. But this is about a group of teen misfits who are wrongly accused of starting a forest fire. And so they have to prove their innocence. So it's a film about friendship, about that fearlessness of being young. And then, of course, looking to the uncertainty of the future and how that brings us together, the paths that we end up taking as we come of age. So that'll be a really fun screening as well. And that's at 7:00. And I should say all of these screenings are free, open to the public. If you want to register, great, but you can also just show up last minute, be spontaneous. So hopefully folks will be inspired to come out and see one or all of these great stories in the next few weeks.
Well, it's certainly fantastic that it's something that anybody can just pop in and enjoy. I know that a lot of the times in our mountain communities, everybody's kind of a little bit, flying by the seat of their pants, like, oh, what can we do this afternoon? Oh, we can go to the Jim Santee Auditorium or go check out some of the fantastic films available. Anything else that you guys have coming up that you want to mention?
No, just go to parkcityfilm.org. We do have some great films coming up for the rest of the month of August. I'll be back to talk about those in a few weeks, but do check it out. We've got mountain bike films, we've got more animation coming up. Of course, we're preparing for a reopening in September, but we're trying to, ramp up a little bit as we get closer to the reopening of our season, but at the same time, still engage folks with these great films from around the world. Roll up on your bike. We certainly love taking public transportation and using our human-powered transportation in the summertime while the weather accommodates that. But just want to thank, we just received a grant from Sunrise Rotary. So I want to thank them for their support, because that helps support these programs and help them be free, and the Park City Chamber as well. So big thanks to everyone that supports Park City Film. Donations, participation, all of it matters. So we really appreciate everyone coming out and supporting us.
Well, and we appreciate you putting on such great shows for us. And tonight, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. And where is that one more time?
That's going to be in the Park City Library patio. It's going to start at 8:45, but you want to get there a little bit early because you got to get your spot out there on the lawn, bring a low back chair, a blanket, and we'll have free popcorn thanks to Summit County Behavioral Health. So as I said, it takes a village to make it all happen. But they've decided that this summer they're going to help support us by making popcorn freely available for all of our free screenings this summer. So big shout out to them as well.
Well, fantastic. I hope to see you out there tonight.
Thank you.
Well, and thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back after a couple of messages. Welcome back to Wasatch Weekends. Kimberly Perot had a fantastic opportunity to learn a lot about the job interviewing process, and she got some tips on how to be our most successful selves. Let's take a look.
Welcome back to our show. Now, I am so excited because I have a wonderful personal friend and professional friend as well joining me on the couch. We have some excellent business tips and tricks and how to land the perfect interview and present yourself best. Joining me today on the couch is talent acquisition manager and business consultant, Emily Gross.
Hi.
How are you, Emily?
I am so thrilled to be here with my dear friend Kim and hopefully share some helpful tips today.
Yeah, I think you are, what you do is very successful. And so you're a talent acquisition manager. Tell me a little bit about what that means.
Yeah, so I manage a team of recruiters. I absolutely love recruiting, talent acquisition. I'm super passionate about people finding career fulfillment, and that all starts with your journey in the job hunt.
Yeah, so you manage a team of recruiters, but you obviously started at the ground level. So
Yes.
as a recruiter, what are things that you typically look for when you start with screening candidates?
Absolutely. This is really your chance as a candidate to get out there, tell your story, be your own brand. And I always say, go out there and get what you want. You know what I mean? Think about opportunities that you want. Look for them online. There's lots of different ways to search for them and go after it. This is a chance to really get the right match for you.
Well, things have definitely changed on the job search. So you are no longer confined to just your local city because there are remote jobs and jobs nationwide. So tell me about how you would go about looking for a job all over the U.S.
Yeah, I actually think this is super exciting because we are no longer limited to our geo area of when we're looking for our next opportunity. You can actually go into many of the job search platforms, LinkedIn, Indeed, and change that location to remote. It's going to pull up all the remote opportunities, and that opens you up essentially to the entire U.S. So lots of opportunities out there.
Absolutely. So as a candidate or a job seeker, what would you recommend as the first steps? What's the first thing that I should do as I begin my job search?
Absolutely. There's a few things. So I would definitely start with your resume. And resumes traditionally have been listing your titles, the companies, and then job responsibilities and duties. Let's switch that up to actual accomplishments, things that you have accomplished, and make them as measurable as possible. So as quantitative as possible, increased 20% of sales within 6 months, started a new project, launched this, hosted this event on this date, just so we can really be enticed to talk to you more. Also your LinkedIn page, that's your chance to also put a professional photo up there to show a little bit more of your opportunity, a little bit more of your personality. So there's lots of different ways to entice people to want to talk to you more, and that's really the goal with the first step.
I think nowadays LinkedIn is almost everything. It's the professional version of social media, and we're all on our phones all the time. So having interactive things is really interesting.
It's amazing because now you can actually send direct messages to companies that I say, like you have a company crush or a crush on a potential job opportunity. You can just send them a message and express your enthusiasm for their company. If there is a company that you really like or a job opportunity, do some research, see their recent press. Have they had any recent milestones as a company, any accomplishments? Put that into a message and really show your enthusiasm and that you care, you're up to date. That's a way to really stand out.
Okay, so you've secured the first interview. Tell me a little bit about how to prepare for that.
Yes. Also in today's world, there are different platforms and different ways that interviews can be conducted. Anything from a phone interview to a video interview to an in-person interview. With the video interviews, some people can be kind of new to this. Really take your time to prepare for these. Make sure you're in a quiet, professional space with no distractions. Make sure that your background is clean, neat, and as simple as possible. We don't want any distractions. Also make sure your Wi-Fi connection is very secure, that you have tested whatever platform that they have asked you to use. There's HireVue, there's Spark Hire. All of those have tutorials and sample interviews that you can do on your own on their websites. Highly recommend that you do that so that when you go into the interview, the tech stuff, you got it down. Now you're just focused on showing that personality and sharing all those accomplishments.
And then there's the classic Zoom, which we love to use here on TV8. Absolutely. So you've got the interview, your technology is great, lighting is good, and you want to make sure that it's facing you like we do here.
Spotlight is on you. You're going to want that spotlight on you, not coming from behind. So it sounds simple, but trust me, it's really going to make you look really professional and really good.
So what advice would you give when in the middle of the interview? What kind of information should you share? Are there follow-up questions? Tell me more about that.
Yes, absolutely. I would recommend anyone before they're starting an interview to definitely think about their career, think about those specific examples that you've had in your career and write those down, because when they ask you questions such as, how are you at overcoming challenges in the workplace? Stay away from saying language like, well, I usually or I always, and give them a specific example of a challenge that you faced. Where were you working? What were the challenges? What did you specifically do? And then don't forget, what was that outcome? Giving specific examples is really what they're looking for. Whenever I hear that a candidate was not selected, the feedback I most hear is that they weren't specific enough. So prepare all that ahead of time so all your stories are on the tip of your tongue, ready to share.
So how would you advise on preparation? Like what would you do? How do you figure out, okay, what are the things that I can add to this potential opportunity?
Yeah, definitely do your research, like I said, on the company, on the person that is interviewing you. Usually they send you their name. Check out their LinkedIn, just some general information so you can know a little bit more about them and how to connect with them during the interview, because that's an important part as well. And yeah, just express your enthusiasm, ask questions. I always say they usually close the interview with, do you have any questions for us? Always have one prepared, because it's very easy to not be able to come up with one after you just completed an interview. And showing that you have a question is, again, showing your interest. You got the wheels turning, you're thinking about joining the company. And so always have a question prepared at the end.
Okay, great. You know, I love to ask questions, which is why I sit here. So what kind of questions would you advise? You mentioned to be prepared and know about the company, but what's a really good follow-up question?
Sure. I mean, you can ask a company how much they plan on scaling within the next 6 months. You know, what are their plans for this role? Does this role plan to have a team around it eventually? You know, do they have any new products coming out, new services? I mean, it depends on the industry, but just ask them about their upcoming plans, or maybe do your research and say, I saw a little bit that you guys are planning on doing this, like would love to hear more. So again, showing that you did your due diligence and showing your interest.
Awesome. And then you can always ask about the position itself. What are the expectations there? That's a fail-safe interview question. I know
Absolutely.
I've used it plenty of times
That's a great one.
in my job searches in the past. So Emily, what would you advise? Where can we go to find more resources on how to update a resume, how to interview? What else would you say?
Yeah, well, there's a ton online, and thank goodness for YouTube and all that stuff. But anyone's welcome to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. My name is Emily Gross. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have. But it's a really exciting time when you're starting your job hunt.
Well, Emily, you are wonderful. I love having you here on the couch. I think your energy is so contagious and obviously really good at what you do. So if you have any last advice, what's that one thing you would tell a candidate?
I would say really don't be afraid to show your enthusiasm. Companies want to hire people that want to be there. That is going to be worth their investment in you, because you're more likely to stay for longer. Even if someone's super qualified, but they're not acting very interested in the role, they haven't done their research, they're not prepared, you know, that doesn't look like a great investment for the company. So don't be afraid to show that enthusiasm.
So oftentimes enthusiasm wins the job.
So it can.
Awesome. Well, Emily, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise. We appreciate you being here on the show.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Now, stay tuned. We have a lot more in store, so we'll be right back after this.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Well, that's all the time we have for this Friday edition of Wasatch Weekends. Don't forget to catch us tomorrow for our full 1-hour Saturday episode where we will have a bunch more career advice and health advice for you to stay healthy and safe this summer. Until then, I'm your host, Ben Roof. This is Wasatch Weekends, and I will see you tomorrow.